Do y'all know how much it costs to hire an expert for expert testimony? All to turn around and not actually have the expert testimony be admitted as expert testimony during the trial. Sarah Boone, what's going on? Defense attorneys, what is going on? If you watched the Sarah Boone trial today, you know that we got a lot of new testimony in. We had some, what I would say are irrelevant witnesses. We had some expert witnesses, or I guess we can call them professional witnesses, because they never actually got entered into the docket as a professional, or sorry, as an expert witness. And then we had some very cute witnesses that we're going to look at today. We are on day 4 of the Sarah Boone trial. Again, like I said yesterday, this trial was supposed to be 3 weeks long. We are now almost a week into the trial, and the prosecution and the defense is aiming to actually do closing statements on Friday morning. So we started last Friday, and we're going to be done this Friday with how this case is going so far. We are going to jump into what the defense is doing. They are completely rushing through this defense. They are not getting evidence admitted the way that it needs to be admitted. And I think they're going to have a lot of problems. Or the question is, do they just think they already won to the point where they got rid of some witnesses throughout today? So we are going to do this setup similar to how we did yesterday. We are going to go through the cases, we're going to go through the facts, and we're going to play some videos, and then we're going to get to the chat at the end. So if you are watching live, make sure you go ahead and drop your comments in the chat box. If you're watching on the replay, we do have timestamps down below, so make sure you check out those timestamps if you want to skip around in the video. So today we are going to start off with the very first witness, or no, I think we had some things that the defense went through. Let me just get my little notes here together and go from there. Actually, no, I don't have anything from the prosecution and the defense. So we're going to have Bossy B bring us in, and we're going to get started right now. Where are you, Bossy B? All right. So first, we start off the day calling Deputy Jessica Ramirez Delgado to the stand. Now, if y'all could please tell me what was the purpose of her testimony, please let me know in the chat. I know where they were going with it, but they just didn't do a good job in eliciting the information that we really needed to get out of Miss Deputy Jessica Ramirez Delgado. She got called to the stand because she had responded to one of the incidences between Sarah Boone and George Torres. Now, I don't remember exactly what date this incident was, but Sarah did testify to this incident. She indicated that George basically stumped her out, right? He stumped on her face, and she called the police, and she was the one arrested because they saw that there were bruises on George, and potentially the way that Sarah was reacting when interviewed by the police could have led to her being found to be the initial aggressor. Now, the defense doesn't ask any clarifying questions. They just like, did you respond to an incident? Yes. Who was arrested? Sarah. All right, we're done. And I was just like, what the heck just happened? Why did we even call her as a witness? How did she even help your case? So she was over really quick. The prosecution did a very, very short cross-examination, and then she was sent away. Sarah got arrested for an abuse incident with George Torres. She already testified to that. Why did we need the police to come and emphasize the fact that Sarah had been arrested for abuse? Defense, what are you doing? This is something that the state should have done, okay? And then we go very quick testimony. We jump right into Deputy John. I did not catch his last name, and he was the lead officer responding to a call between Sarah Boone and, well, I guess I'm going through both of these at the same time. Lead officer responding to an incident between Sarah Boone and George Torres. And in this one, George was the one arrested, and there was marks on both people, but they ended up finding that Sarah was, I guess, the most battered in the situation. So 2 deputies testified at the beginning of the morning of day 4. Both of them responded to incidences, one to where Sarah was arrested, and then another to where George was arrested. Don't know how the first one helped Sarah's case, but they presented it nonetheless. Let me go ahead and jump into the next part because we're going to jump right into detective. No, Yeah, we're going to jump right into Detective Chelsea Kipsel. She was called back to the stand. So let's have Bossy B bring us into that. And I know we have quite a few people missing in the live stream because I know there's a lot of people still live streaming right now on the case that tends to hang out with other channels in my channel, but that is all okay. We're still going to jump into it. Detective Chelsea Kipsel was called back to the stand. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And I keep saying it and I'm not correcting it. Anyways, she's called back to the stand. If you remember her, she was the lead investigator or detective on the case that kind of made the decisions on what evidence to collect and all the like. And she got a little bit snappy with the defense on the defense stand, I'm sorry, on the witness stand. And now they have called her back to basically what they call impeaching one of the witnesses. If y'all remember Abraham Moreno, he was, or was it Morena? Abraham, the maintenance guy at the apartment. I can't remember if it's Moreno or Morena. He testified that Sarah wanted to teach George a lesson. And the purpose of the detective being questioned again on the defense's case in chief was to establish whether Abraham actually told the detective during his interview that Sarah was trying to teach George a lesson. After reviewing some of the recordings and the transcripts from the interview that she had with Abraham, she determined that she did not hear Abraham tell her that Sarah said that she was trying to teach George a lesson. Now, does that mean that statement never happened? No. As we know, we have Sarah who told us she didn't remember recording the video. She doesn't remember what happened before she started recording the video, but she definitely remembers what happened that night. But the day after the incident, she didn't remember. So can we really hold it against him? Can we really impeach him on saying that I told the detective this and he really didn't tell them? Because maybe he forgot at that moment. If we can't hold it against Sarah, then we can't hold it against him. So that was the end of Detective Chelsea. I thought they were going to call her back to try to impeach her on some of the things that she said, or to try to get her on some more issues of not telling Sarah that she was going to be under arrest. But no, they didn't do that. They literally came just to ask about whether Abraham said that Sarah wanted to teach him a lesson the day or a few days after the incident, which was odd to me. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that in the chat and in the comments down below. My bad. I definitely cut myself off there. And then we jump into the experts. Now, I asked at the beginning of the stream, and I know we got here pretty quickly. At the beginning of the stream, how much does it cost to hire an expert witness? And we know that Sarah knows how much it costs to hire an expert witness because she had two expert witnesses. She had the forensic psychologist who we're going to talk about next. That was Dr. Brandon. I don't remember what his first name. I think it was like Michael Brandon or something like that. That doctor was the forensic psychologist. And then she had, was it? They're both forensic psychologists. Okay, so Brendan is a forensic psychologist, and then we had the other lady whose name was Dr. Julie Harper, who was also a psychologist. Both of them were psychologists, and believe it or not, Sarah most likely paid them to be there in order to argue things on their behalf. The interesting thing about these experts are that they were not entered as experts on the record. So if you don't know how much experts cost, they can cost tens of thousands of dollars. The lowest amount experts can cost is $10 in Florida. In order to be able to testify, pay them $10. Now they are your expert. You've given them the fee that's required by the court. But of course, most experts require a lot more than $10. And I'm sure that these experts that went through records and spent a lot of time with Sarah charged more than $10, right? On average, you're probably looking at $500 per hour to testify. And then you're probably looking at a retainer of at minimum $5,000 to $10,000. And that's at minimum. It can definitely go up from there, especially with all the things that they were asking for these psychologists to review regarding Sarah. Now, these psychologists, we're talking about Dr. Brandon first. they did go through a lot of things. They talked about the battered spouse syndrome. They talked about battered spouse syndrome being, or he talked about battered spouse syndrome being most related to PTSD. That it's not on a chart on its own. He talked about a lot of things that required experts. He testified in multiple trials. He's been doing this for years. He said like 1990, right? So we're going all the way back to 1990. This guy has been doing this kind of job. And the defense went to move him as an expert in the field. Prosecution objected. They went to sidebar. We don't know what was said, but the court sustained the objection. So he was not qualified as an expert in Sarah Boone's trial, despite being qualified in what he said was over 1,500 trials previously. So that was a shocker to me. I would want my money back. You are not an expert, or the defense just didn't get to the proper questions to have him admitted as an expert. That part shook me to the core. I was like, what? I don't know if I've ever seen an expert be rejected on one of these televised trials. So anyways, he was there to talk about what battered spouse syndrome was. He let us know that it was most related to PTSD because it's not actually in their book of psychological diagnosis. I forgot what they said it was called. And like I said, he was rejected for being deemed an expert. He was still able to testify, but the jury does not have to give him the weight of an expert. And he knows, like, he's been doing this since 1990, over 30 years. So they're probably going to give him a lot of credibility anyways, but he will not be labeled as an expert on the witness list for them to review. And then he went into how battered spouses do not usually leave the abusive relationship. They know they're in an abusive relationship, but they decide to stay. And instead of leaving, they kind of develop a way to protect themselves, and basically insinuating that this is what Sarah did. I don't think he actually ever diagnosed her, but he is explaining the battered spouse syndrome because that is what Sarah is arguing. In order to be a battered spouse, or the cycle of the battered spouse, there has to be a cycle of abuse, right? And then coercive control, and the fact that the victim cannot escape the situation. And that usually comes in the form of a threat, like, if you leave, I'm going to unalive you, I'm going to hurt your dogs, all of the things that Sarah said that George was doing to her. He indicated that battered spouse is both subjective and objective, because you have to look at it as a whole. Like, yes, that is abusive control. And then you have to look at how that person perceived it, is how he explained it. At one point, the prosecution was just firing objections. And you can tell that it threw the defense off, because they paused for a long time and they seemed quite flustered with where they were going to take their question next. I don't really think much came out of his testimony, other than the fact that he kind of defined what battered spouse syndrome was for us. And he let us know that it is a form of PTSD, and he's not an expert. So they probably just spent like $500 an hour on him for him not to be deemed an expert, which is crazy to me. They then flip over to cross, and the prosecution wanted to focus on that a person can be in an abusive relationship, but not traumatized, because the thing about battered spouse is that you're traumatized, right? You're going through a lot. You're having a problem. People are kind of the person is kind of taking advantage of you, and you feel like you cannot escape. The prosecution was able to attack, like, when someone is being accused of a crime, don't we have to then question their credibility when they're now claiming battered spouse syndrome when they never brought this up before? And then they also went into the fact that alcohol was a factor in Sarah Boone's case. Not only was she potentially abused by George Torres, the alcohol consumption, the alcohol use also made her more prone to react with violence. The prosecution also pointed out that personality disorders and actual trauma disorders can kind of be misdiagnosed, right? You have to kind of look at both to make sure that they are not overlapping, because some of the symptoms can be the same. Where the prosecution, I think, did a good job is he made the expert that was not an expert because he was not admitted as an expert, made him testify to what being a narcissist is, and then also having adjustment disorder. Narcissist meaning to have this grandiose what do you call it, personality, and kind of have a need to control people. I don't remember all the elements that are required to be a narcissist, but they did talk about narcissists. And then also the what is it called, adjustment disorder, which tends to happen in people when they have a hard time adjusting to new situations. And one of the examples that he gave was like when you get broken up with and you have like this extreme emotional reaction. All of those things, both of those things potentially apply to Sarah. And I'm sure that's what he was trying to get into the jury's head. She kind of sounds like a narcissist. She kind of sounds like she has an adjustment disorder. And then he goes on to talk about the trauma-based disorder versus actual alcohol abuse disorder, and that people need to be careful when diagnosing both of those, because you can have a trauma response or you can have a response because you're too intoxicated. And then they go ahead and they restate the cycle where there's the love bomb. They abuse, they love bomb, and then it kind of starts over. And he also clarified that battered spouse can happen to a male as well. Where I think he was going with that was that George could have potentially been the battered spouse. I think it was kind of abuse going back and forth both ways. But after all of the incidences, and we can only rely on the incidences that Sarah presented because George is not here to defend himself. After all of the instances that Sarah put forward, I would have to say it does seem like more of the abuse was going towards her. But again, that's not to say that there's some other abuse that Sarah was doing towards him that we didn't get to learn about, right? And then he also emphasized that people who have a poor coping mechanisms can also react in the way that Sarah did. So we got narcissistic behavior potentially at play. We got adjustment disorder potentially at play. We got alcohol potentially at play. And now we have poor coping mechanisms potentially at play, all coming out of this one expert, which was not admitted as an expert. And maybe this is why, because he actually gave the prosecution more ammo than he gave to the defense, in my opinion. And he was their witness. And then they go ahead and go back to redirect, and they try to emphasize that there are people that fake their diagnosis and that there are tests to be done to make sure that people are not faking their diagnosis. So that was the end of the expert, non-expert testimony that just couldn't, he couldn't get into being an expert, which is funny to me. I don't know what they could have done, honestly. He's been doing this for over 30 years. How could they not get him qualified as an expert? I think it might be because he doesn't only testify to battered spouse, and maybe he's just like an overall psychological expert, but maybe not in that particular area. Like maybe he only did a couple of battered spouse cases, but they didn't. He was not entered as an expert. So y'all let me know what y'all think about that. I'm gonna have Bossy B bring us into the next portion of the case. All right, y'all. So I mentioned that we have a really, really cute witness, okay, that I'm going to talk about, but we're not quite there yet. Y'all make sure y'all let me know what y'all think about this case in the chat and down below in the comments. If you're not subscribed, make sure that you do subscribe. This is just a recap of what happened during trial today, because I know a lot of people do not have time to watch these trials. They're long, they're confusing, and sometimes they can be a little bit boring, and we like to watch them on fast forward. Or at least I like to watch them on fast forward because that's all I have time to do. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the next part of it. After that psychologist was after he was questioned, he left the stand. He was excused, not subject to recall. And then the defense let us know another thing of putting on the record and kind of putting Sarah on blast, let us know that they actually excused some of the witnesses, basically finding that some of their testimony was not going to be relevant. And some of the actual witnesses were actually there in the court, and they talked to them and they're like, oh, no, I don't think it's going to be helpful. Oh, no, I don't think it's going to be helpful. Now, do I think they still interviewed people whose testimony was not helpful? Yes, I think there was another officer on that list, and then there was a neighbor on that list, and then I think one more other person. But I still think they put people on the stand today that were not that helpful. Like the experts, they got in the information that they needed to get in. There was some loose ends on that as well. But some of the witnesses, like the police officer, the first police officer, I was like, I don't know why you put her on there. Basically, just showed us that you started off the day reminding us that Sarah also abuses people or also abused George. I don't think that was a good start to the day. Anyways, they dismissed some witnesses, and then the court had to voir dire Sarah Boone, making sure that she understood why the defense was choosing the strategy not to go with the witnesses that they had previously selected. Again, making the record very clear for if this thing does go up on appeal. And then he had one witness left, and then we're going to go to lunch. So let's just get into that witness. And that one was a little bit odd as well. So let's. All right. So the court called back up Janella Wadden. I think I'm saying that right. I always say I think I'm saying it right, and I'm probably not saying it right. But they called back up Janella Wadden. If you remember who she was the digital forensic examiner with the sheriff of the Orange County Sheriff Department, and she was the one that helped us understand the iPhone logs, and then also admitted the videos, the suitcase videos during the testimony. During her testimony during the prosecution's case in chief. She was called back by the defense to insert videos or admit videos of George smashing the TV that we talked about yesterday, where Sarah was saying, yeah, he did all of these bad things to me. He even smashed my TV. I have that on video recording. And we saw still photos, and I said, why would you admit still photos and not the actual video? Well, now Janella is coming to admit the actual video. And the reason why they had to do it through Sarah first was because the court basically said they couldn't talk about any of these past acts unless Sarah testified. So that's why it's a little bit out of order. It probably would not have been like that if she was not arguing self-defense in the way that the court made her testify first. So all they really did was enter two videos of George smashing the TV, or no, one video of George threatening her, threatening Sarah, telling her that she was going to help him take the TV off or something like that. I don't know what he was trying to tell her, but he's like, you're going to help me. You're going to help me. I assume take the TV down. And then there was a video of him literally just smashing the TV, not saying nothing. He wasn't saying nothing. She wasn't saying nothing. And it was entered into evidence. Janella wasn't really asked any questions about it. It was just to establish, she had to authenticate the videos because she's the one that pulled them from the phone. Okay. And that was the end of her testimony. They talk about giving the charging rule. What is it? The charging instructions. I can't think of it. They're talking about giving the charging instructions tomorrow, meaning once the defense wraps up their case, they're going to give the jury instructions on what the charges is and what they should be considering in determining how or whether Sarah Boone is responsible or whether she's going to be convicted in this case. They then go to lunch, and then we have the cute witness come up. And I want y'all to really pay attention to this witness. Let me have Bossy B bring us in. I know this is a quick recap. We are not being here all night like we was last night. I wanted to do 1 hour, ended up doing 2 hours. This one is going to be right around that 1 hour or maybe even less stream. So we got our cute witness. Name of the cute witness, I believe it's Pearl Walker, but I couldn't really hear it. Last name is Walker. She is the one that the defense has been hyping up, saying we have this witness that's flying in. We need to know when we're going to start our testimony because this witness is flying in. This witness is flying in. And I'm like, okay, what is this witness going to talk about? What is this witness going to talk about? I want y'all to pay attention to this witness and what issues you see with her testimony as soon as her questioning starts. Like, it's very interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and be professional and actually get the screen that I need shared. That would be helpful. Here we go. And we are going to talk about Miss Pearl Walker. I believe her name is Pearl. It might be something else, but let's go ahead and check her out.
Ms. Walker?
And y'all, give me a second because I don't know what's going on, but it is too loud for me. It's hurting my ear. So let me turn that thing off. And here we go. We got Miss Walker on the stand, and she is Sarah Boone's neighbor. Let's see what she has to say.
Can you raise your hand and please swear? Please do swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Can you state and spell your name for the record for us?
What did you say?
Can you state and spell your name for the record
Pearl
for us?
Walker. Pearl Walker, Walker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Beck, you may proceed.
Okay, so her name is Pearl. I thought I heard that, and I was like, I'm not quite sure if I did. Now, what do you notice off the bat? It's still about to happen. I'm gonna jump right into it. Y'all let me know what y'all notice. Tell me when you see it.
Good afternoon, Ms. Walker. Ms. Walker, do you know the defendant, Sarah Boone?
Yes.
How do you know her, ma'am? How do you know Ms. Boone? If you can't hear me, just ask me to repeat myself.
Okay, okay.
How do you know Ms. Boone?
She lived in the same apartment building that I lived in.
Okay, so if you haven't caught on yet, seems to be a little bit hard of hearing. She can't really understand what people are asking her, has to listen pretty intently, and then may have to ask, can you repeat it a couple of times? She didn't hear the clerk when they talked to her. She could have just been kind of getting situated and maybe didn't hear it. But then when you're talking about the defense who is in the microphone and she still couldn't hear them, again, still very cute witness, right? She still couldn't hear him. Okay. So I want y'all to pay attention to that and the testimony that they tried to elicit from her. And then once we get to the state, the testimony that the state then elicits from her. The state kills it at the end of this testimony. So let's jump back into it.
And can you tell us how long the two of you shared the same apartment buildings?
About 4 years.
And how is it that you became familiar with Ms. Boone?
My husband and I was sitting out on the porch, and we see her coming with her 2 dogs.
And what happened then?
Then I would call her over with her dogs.
And what do you mean by call her over?
When I see her walking with a dog, and I see her and I look at her, and I say, "Hey, Sarah, how you doing?" And that's it.
And would she generally respond to
Sarah, how
you?
you doing?
Yes.
And would you spend time with Ms. Boone?
Did I spend time?
Would you spend time speaking with Ms. Boone?
Yes.
How long would you speak with her?
About 15 or 20 minutes. That's all.
And was your husband sometimes involved in those conversations as well?
He just say hi.
So you and Ms. Boone were the two primary communicators?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the time that you knew Ms. Boone, did you witness anything about her person or her body that gave you cause for concern?
Sometimes I would see it like she had been choked around her neck or her arm be hurt. Have a mark on her arm. And I just asked her.
And would she describe how that happened?
She just say, I had a...
Hang on. The objection is sustained.
When you would ask her that, how did she appear to you to respond emotionally to your questions about her injuries?
She just say, one of them days or something.
Objection sustained.
Just for the record, instead of telling us what she would say, would she demonstrate any emotion on her face?
Well, I would see the emotion that she was upset about something.
And did you ask about her obvious upset persona? Her upset, the fact that she was upset? Would you ask her about that?
Yeah. Well,
Okay, you have to just limit your answer to the question. Would you ask her about that issue? About why she was upset?
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just can't go beyond that. Thank you. Now, how frequently would that occur?
I would say on the weekends when I see her.
Was that primarily when you saw her on the weekends?
Mostly I would see her walking through, going to her place, and I'm sitting on the porch and I see her then.
Now, let's start that. While you were there in that apartment complex, and excuse me for getting ahead of myself, do you still live in that apartment complex?
No.
How long have you been gone from that apartment complex? If you don't know, that's fine.
Oh, it's been a while.
Thank you, ma'am. During the occasions that you had to interact with Ms. Boone, how did she treat you?
She was a nice lady.
Overruled.
Nice to me.
Did she ever act uppity?
Overruled.
Did she ever treat you in
Those are bad objections by the state, honestly. Like relevance. You guys are talking about Sarah and kind of her demeanor. Like, is she the one that's abusive? Would she be normally angry? Now, could it kind of cross the line into what do we want to call it? Into character evidence potentially, and that's probably what the prosecution is getting at, but they're just using the wrong words.
An uppity manner.
What you mean, sir?
Did she ever look down on you as a person?
Oh, no,
Did she ever treat you with disrespect?
no.
I'm going to check this is character evidence. Sustained.
May I approach on this, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, and so that's what I was getting at. I think they were trying to get to the right objection of character evidence, but he kept saying relevant. And the court thinks, no, this is relevant. Is it character evidence? Yes, but you have to make the proper objection rather than making the not the proper objection. So she basically just testifies to what she observed on Sarah Boone. Her testimony is not that long, so we're going to finish her up and see everything that she really has to say. And then, like I said, where we're getting in my opinion, the good information from, not the good information from, but the prosecution's cross-examination of her is going to show us what we really need to see in this case. So I'm hoping that they god dang hurry up and get through talking to her. And they're still talking to the judge. So let me see if I could kind of see.
No, I can't say.
Did you also observe George Torres during the time that you lived there in the apartment complex?
I didn't see him very much. If we sitting on the porch, that's when time I see him.
Did you know Mr. Torres very well?
No.
Was there an incident when you saw Ms. Boone with a black eye?
Yes.
Did you witness a pattern between Ms. Boone and Mr. Torres wherein you observed signs of abuse? Objection.
Sustained.
You testified that you saw Ms. Boone on occasion with bruises, other injuries, and a black eye. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Yes.
And was there any pattern to what you observed in regards to those injuries and bruises that you observed on Ms. Boone?
One time I seen with a black eye and like she had been choked one time.
I don't think she's like really actually understanding the questions they're trying to get to. She's just like, I just saw these injuries. What more do you want from me? And mind you, this is the witness. She wanted to appear remotely. And then they were like, oh, we have to organize because she's flying in. In my opinion, she's not really giving us much, but whatever. This is who they wanted to have fly in and tell us about Sarah Boone and George at her apartment.
Did Ms. Boone complain to you about those marks?
Yes.
Thank you, or nothing further.
Any cross-examination.
And then they just ended so abruptly. Like, did she complain about the marks? Yes. All right, now we're done. I was like, did y'all not like practice this or know exactly what information you wanted to elicit out of this witness? Like, you could not have possibly known what you wanted out of this witness, what you wanted out of this witness with those answers, with those questions that they came up with. Let's jump into the prosecution now, talking to her, and pay very close attention to what the prosecution elicits out of her at the very end. That's what I want y'all to focus on, the very end, but also listen to what she has to say now.
Hi, Ms. Walker. Is it fair to say you're not sure when exactly you saw any of those injuries on her, correct?
Say that again.
You're not exactly sure when you saw any of those injuries on her, correct?
Once you come past the apartment, I'll be sitting out there. We always sit out there.
Right, but we don't know if this is December or 2018 or anything
I
like that.
can't remember, sir.
Okay. And
Exactly. That was a good question to start with. She doesn't know when she saw these things.
is it fair to say you have no idea how she got those marks? Is that fair?
Repeat that again.
Do you have any idea how she got those marks?
Now,
On the weekends, I see him and her go in.
and I answer.
But you don't know who, if anybody, put those marks on her, right?
Well, I
Just tell us where yes or
can
no.
tell when they must have had an argument or something. I hear the dogs barking.
Listen.
And you're 5 doors down, right? Unit 8, Unit 3?
Yeah.
No other questions?
Any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. So if you listen to what they asked her at the end, how do you don't know who put the marks on you? No, she kind of guessed. And when they argued, she heard the dogs barking. That doesn't mean that he was putting his hands on her. Not saying it didn't happen, but that explanation does not mean that George was the one actually abusing Sarah, or we don't know where the marks came from, was the prosecution's point of this. And then when he ended, he said, when she said, "Oh, I would hear the dogs barking," she set herself up for failure because you haven't even heard the questions on the stand, and these people are using microphones. And so you want us to believe you as the witness, what she's testifying to is things that she has heard, but she is hard of hearing now. Could she have had better hearing 4 or 5 years ago? Potentially, but I think that was really effective for the prosecution. Just end it there. She wants us to say she knew when they were fighting because she can hear it, but she can't even hear him, and he's standing right in front of her. So I think that was a really good way to end it. Still think a very cute witness, straight to her point, the points that she wanted to make, but I don't think it was a witness. I think this was one of the witnesses that they probably could have let go and didn't need to testify in this trial. And I wonder if the other neighbor had similar testimony, but they just let this witness testify because she was already there and they done flew this lady out here. She got a wheelchair, she got a cane, and you kind of need to put her on the stand at that point. And I want y'all to hear what she says at the end too, because she's just as shook as we are to how quick her testimony was.
Can this witness be released?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ms. Walker, the deputies are going to come get you and take you out, okay?
You all done?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
It was like, y'all are all done already? Y'all didn't harass me to get out here, and I was on the stand for what, 10, 20 minutes? That was ridiculous. So I feel for my girl right there. I think she did a good job for what it was worth. I don't know if it was a testimony that was needed. It was just repetitive and saying she had marks on her. We know she had marks on her. We already saw the pictures. We didn't need her to come and testify that Sarah had marks on her. We already saw the marks on her. So I thought that was interesting. She doesn't remember the time frame. She don't remember if she's 5 doors down. I don't think it was a good witness to call. Although, like I said, very adorable, very cute, very confused about why it took so quickly, but not a very helpful witness in my opinion. Y'all can let me know what y'all think about her testimony there. And we're going to go ahead and jump on to the last witness, who is Dr. Julie Harper. Now, I was going to play a portion of her testimony, and I might still do it, but I just realized that the feed that I grabbed on has a whole goddamn sponsorship on it, and I'm not getting paid from that sponsorship. So why am I promoting it? But I don't know where this timestamp is on other videos, so I may just have to still play it there. So next person that testifies on the stand is Dr. Julie Harper. She is another one of the forensic psychologists that Sarah Boone hired. Now, they never even offered her testimony that I heard. I did not hear them even offer her testimony to be considered expert testimony. They just let her get up there and testify. She also has been doing this for not 30 years, but I think hers is more along the line of 22 years, I think is what she said. And she has been doing this. And she started off pretty strong, establishing her diagnosis of what she thinks Sarah has. And she basically concluded that she believes that Sarah has that she was a battered spouse. She also thinks that, or basically what she diagnosed her with was PTSD, which we know from Dr. Brendan that PTSD, or that battered spouse syndrome, is a subcategory of PTSD. She also diagnosed her with alcohol use disorder, meaning she drank too much, right? And then also depression. So she diagnosed her with 3 different things. She did really good while on direct with the defense, but where she kind of got annoying to me is as soon as the prosecution started, there like a couple of questions in. To me, she got a little bit snappy, and then you can tell that she was being irritable towards the middle of her testimony, where the prosecution said something about he was reading something, and it said, what did it say? Believes. He said the person believes blah blah blah, and she'll go, I'll agree with everything you said, but it actually says belief. And then she did that like 3 more times of him using basically like the wrong tense of the word. And I'm like, there was literally no point of you correcting the believes versus belief. I understand that he's reading something, but is it really important enough to waste your breath on that? Now I see why they did not offer you as an expert in the field, but I wonder if they would have had the same issues with the other guy, and that maybe she is an expert in psychology in all, the forensic psychologist world in all, but maybe not specifically in battered spouse. She did testify to doing a lot of insanity analysis and whether someone was competent to stand trial and whether they were competent at the time of committing an act. But she didn't talk about a lot about being an expert on battered spouse. And I'm wondering if that's why they never even tried to move her testimony into evidence as an expert. Again, they can still consider how long she has been doing it, but she will not be marked as an expert on the on their witness list when they're going over, okay, who do we listen to? Who do we trust in this trial, and how we are going to decide whether Sarah Boone is going to be held criminally liable for this crime. I wanted to start her testimony partway, most of the way through it. I don't have a lot of her testimony that I wanted to listen to, but I did want to play where he started questioning her about how many times, where the prosecution started questioning Miss Julie Harper about how many times she interviewed Sarah. He indicated, well, you interviewed her 9 times. Normally when you're appointed by the state, it's only 1 time. You probably have a different opinion. Where what he was getting at is that she probably had a different opinion because Sarah hired her versus her actually being appointed for that little $10. I'm sure they pay her more than $10 because she said 90% of her practice comes from actually being appointed by the state. But when you're hired by the state, sometimes her reports are not entered because people don't really like what she wrote, versus if a defense hires her, she might be a little bit more willing to go in their favor, and basically trying to call her bias is what the prosecutor was trying to get at. But she had testified earlier during the defense's direct examination that no, she reviews all of these cases in the same light because it's an objective opinion. And if you don't do it objectively, then you're doing something wrong. But the way she was answering these questions with the prosecution, I'm starting to think she was a little bit biased. Like I said, I think she did good on direct. And then as soon as she got on cross, I don't think that she was doing a good job after that. And so where we're going to watch is where the prosecution is getting to, well, what did you ask her about the actual events? You said you reviewed videos. You said you reviewed documents. You're claiming that she has PTSD and that she's a battered spouse. But what do you think about her being narcissistic? What do you think about that? And when we're getting into that, she does not, in my opinion, come off truthful. And I think she lost a lot of credibility with me once we started getting into this line of questions. Or no, actually, as soon as the prosecution started, I started to think that she was not as truthful anymore. And of course, I know it's hard when someone is attacking your credibility, but I don't think she should have gotten that defensive. And y'all, I am actually going to try to find a different feed because this one do have a whole advertisement on it, and it's getting bigger and bigger every time I move the god dang or I guess I could just kind of, I don't know, I can't even do that. So maybe if I zoom in my screen, maybe I'll do it like this. Nope, it doesn't work. So I need to figure out a different, let's just play it and whatever. If we get kicked, we get kicked. Okay. There we go. And this is the forensic psychologist who is not entered as an expert, Miss Julie Harper, and we are in prosecution cross-examination right now.
alcohol consumption when evaluating what Ms. Boone is telling you about the events of the day?
Yes.
Did she tell you whether or not she was intoxicated by the amount of alcohol she consumed that day?
Please silence your cell phone.
And like that face was like so unnecessary. I don't know. I feel like I don't like her now because usually I just listen. I don't really watch. But that face just irritated me, especially that I know where she's going to go with this.
You may proceed.
So she did not describe herself as intoxicated originally when we discussed this. So
So the answer is no. She did not describe herself as
intoxicated, right?
Hypothetically, if she had told the jury that she was intoxicated at the time of the offense, would that affect your evaluation of her credibility in the history she provided you?
No, because that was also my opinion.
Did she indicate to you in describing the events of February 23rd, 2020, that there was any point in time she just simply did not remember?
Yes.
What points in time are those?
So she did not remember taking the videos of the suitcase or the incident in the suitcase until she was at the interrogation room.
And I will also like to add that during the defense's direct examination, she knew all her answers. As soon as the prosecution started really asking her questions about what she relied on, she needed to refresh and needed to remember, and she didn't know what was going on. So,
I guess, and then they were going through them with her. Then she recalled that.
I'm talking about specifically with you. Did she indicate that there were any portions of the night or day or night that she did not remember?
yeah, figure it out. He's asking you a question, review your notes like you've been doing this entire time, and go for it.
I can't recall anything specifically right now.
Hypothetically, if she had indicated to the jury that she did not remember the 9 or 10 minutes immediately preceding the first video being taken, would that be inconsistent with what she told you then?
No,
Well, she didn't indicate to you that she forgot any part of the night, right?
right. She just didn't say that. So
Would it affect your evaluation of what she told you about the events of February 23rd, 2020, if she hypothetically has testified that she did not remember 10 minutes for videos?
not really, no, because the event and the course of events that she narrated to me occurred over several hours. So when you interview somebody about circumstances of an offense, it's the usual for someone to not remember every single minute for hours at a time. I can't imagine that anybody's memory could hold that much unless they have like photographic memory or something.
I'm not asking about hours and hours of, an itemization of her day's events. We're talking about the 20 minutes of the offense. Does that affect the weight that you give her history she provided you? Just yes or no?
No.
Now, what she indicated to you was the day had been going well. It was fun and games, correct?
Yes.
Conflict-free?
To her, she said it was a good day. So that's what she told me.
She said it was a good day.
Yes.
And there comes a point in time where the activities turn toward hide and seek, correct?
Yes.
And she goes up to the shower?
Right.
And when she comes down from the shower, that's when Mr. Torres is in this suitcase, correct?
Getting into it.
And she goes over to the suitcase and zips it, correct?
Yes.
And did she describe whether it was 100% zipped to you or just a certain percentage?
She said that it wasn't zipped all the way.
And still then, that was funny to the two of them at first, correct?
That's right.
And then there came a point in time where Mr. Torres was getting mad about being zipped in the suitcase.
She told me that he was getting mad. Yes.
And that, in turn, made her mad.
That's right.
What Mr. Torres was saying was,
Like, how does that even come up? So she stated that she zipped him in the suitcase, and what she was saying, well, he was saying made her mad. And so this, again, goes against Sarah's theory that, oh no, I just took it upon myself because I wanted to talk to him and let him know how I felt so that he can stop. Now, your own expert or the psychologist is telling us that you were getting mad. And then listen to how she describes this and tries to not acknowledge what's really going on here.
I can't breathe, correct?
That is what's recorded on the video.
Well, I'm asking you about what you reported her saying.
Well, what made her mad was not that he was saying he couldn't breathe. It's what he was saying that was making her mad.
Well, what else was he saying?
At the time, she said that he said something that was making her mad. And so that's the extent of what we talked about at that moment.
So you didn't elaborate what something was that made her mad, correct?
Right. She said he said something that made her mad, and that started making her mad.
You didn't find it important to learn what specifically he said that made her mad, correct?
I don't agree that I didn't find it important.
Okay. Then explain. Why wouldn't you ask that question?
Because as a person who is traumatized is describing their experience as a trained clinician, you will allow open-ended discussion of that experience. And so it's not an interrogation. You don't go asking confrontational questions at the time of their first narration.
Well, you had 9 visits with her. Did you follow up on your 9th visit?
I asked her different questions about
Did you ever ask her?
being confrontational.
Did you ever ask her specifically in any of your 9 visits with her what it was that he said that made her mad?
No.
And you just went with that, right? Because now her defense is that she just wanted to talk to him. Let's figure out what she's mad about.
She never described him doing anything to make her mad but his words, correct?
Right.
And once she got mad, she decided that she was going to leave him in there for 2 minutes.
That's right.
Not 3, not 1, but 2, correct?
That's what she said.
And the reason she was doing that was because she wanted him to understand how it feels to be choked and what she had experienced.
That's right.
Did you ask her why she didn't let him out of the suitcase after 2 minutes?
Yes, I did actually ask her that.
And what did she say?
Well, she thought that he could get out himself. That's
That's
one
her
thing.
story.
She said that when she
Stick
was
to
able
it.
to unzip it, it was not some significant thing. She was able to unzip it easily. So she said it never occurred to her that he couldn't get out.
You may proceed.
And you reviewed the still photograph of the suitcase as well as the 2 videos.
Right.
And did you understand what the metadata or what the timestamps were for each of those items?
I'm sure when I reviewed it, I saw the timestamp. Yeah,
Would you agree that 20 minutes is 10 times as long as 2 minutes?
I would.
Great.
And if Mr. Torres had not been able to get himself out of the suitcase within 20 minutes, she didn't indicate that she let him out, correct?
She did not.
No. Did not. She had no intention of letting him out.
She described to you, Ms. Boone being she, that she was helpful to the police.
Yes.
Do you agree with that assessment?
This is a
that she was helpful
BS
to the police?
answer.
In the sense that she was having conversations with them without counsel, I would consider that helpful to the police.
Do you think lying to the police is helpful to the police's investigation?
Right.
No.
Do you agree that she was not truthful with them?
Yes, I think that I would agree with that.
And when she described getting Mr. Torres out of the suitcase, she described stretching his little legs,
Yes,
and she stated to you there was no fight that day, correct?
that's right.
Just
Physical.
wanted him to be uncomfortable.
I need to clarify. Physical fight.
Right.
Yes.
Just wanted him to be uncomfortable,
Yes.
correct? And then there's a description of a bat, and her using it to nudge, right?
Poke.
Poke. And so,
Hope.
do we agree that that means like poking out like this as opposed to swinging it like your baseball hitter?
I would agree with you.
And you reviewed the autopsy report, correct?
I believe so.
Did you get an opportunity to review the autopsy photos?
Yes.
Did you question her when she said that she only poked him with the bat?
No.
Not in any of your 9 visits?
Did I question her about whether? Can you just repeat the question? I want to make sure I'm answering it correctly. Okay.
Did you ever, in considering the autopsy report and the autopsy photographs that you reviewed,
Yes.
when she said that she nudged or poked with the baseball bat, did you ever question her about that, given the severity of his injuries?
So to answer correctly, I did question her
Which-
about how she used the bat. And she reiterated that she poked and she gestured what she meant. So I did question her about that.
And did you have any questions about that history she relayed to you, given the other evidence in this case that you reviewed?
Just in contrast to the interrogation video. So that
It didn't contrast to the autopsy photographs or report?
Object.
Judge, I object. He always objects and doesn't give the basis. And the judge has had to ask him multiple times today, is there an objection? What is the legal basis of your objection? And he doesn't know half the time. So we are dealing with the defense. He is almost done.
Did she indicate all this nudging or poking with the bat was done while he was inside the suitcase?
yes,
She never told you that there was any nudging or poking with the bat when he was outside the suitcase?
correct.
She indicated that she ended up flipping the suitcase over face down.
That's right.
Did she tell you about Mr. Torres calling his brother earlier that evening?
No.
Did she ever give you a history about a loud boom occurring inside her townhouse that evening?
Yeah, 'cause she said it didn't happen. Why are you asking her that? Said it happened the day
You never had the
before.
opportunity, obviously, to interview Mr. Torres about these things, correct?
Of course not.
No other questions?
Any redirect examination?
Okay, and then the defense just goes on and kind of clarify what would be considered abuse, like withholding keys and withholding. They didn't talk about withholding documents. The prosecution did. Anyways, they go back through like some of the things hidden slapping that George did to her to prove like, oh, what is a symptom of some, or what does an abuser do? And that was the end of that. Like I said, her demeanor to me, especially towards the end, and the snappiness that she was getting with the prosecution, I didn't really appreciate it. It made her come off as untruthful when he was asking her stuff about like what she actually analyzed from this case. It didn't really seem like she knew what she was talking about. So to me, she doesn't come off that credible after the prosecution got done with her. So I think they did a good job in poking holes in that testimony. And I think the prosecution just did a bad job in not admitting these experts who's probably charging them $500 an hour to be there. I don't know that for a fact, but that's like the going rate for stuff like this. So I don't know what the prosecution what the defense has going on, but they could not get their experts admitted for nothing. And they're just rushing through the end of this case. Let's have Vossi B bring us into the last part. I told y'all I was going to be able to do an hour live stream. We doing it. Okay. So after her testimony, the defense then states that let me see what they stated. Let me check my notes. The jury got sent out and Julie Harper is done. And the defense requested to have judicial notice of the no contact orders that were issued against George Torres. If you don't know what a no contact order is, essentially like a restraining order that you cannot talk to the other person. Both of them were from June 2019. They were against George Torres by the criminal court, saying that he could not contact Sarah Boone. The prosecution properly objected to these documents as hearsay, but also said it is okay to do judicially noticed documents because they are filed with the court. They don't really have a problem with that. What they have a problem with is the statements within the restraining orders of people, of what they wrote in the restraining orders, and those people were not interviewed. And then the court granted that because the defense did not come back with a good response to hearsay, because I don't know, they said they've been doing this for 35 years, but they really should have known the response to that, and maybe just kind of agreed not to look at the allegations against her allegations against him in the actual no contact order. But they didn't make that argument. They just said it's a regular business, it's a business record kept in the regular course of business. Wrong response to hearsay. But the defense was like, okay, well, we're going to go have a clerk testify to the authenticity of the document. The state said, we don't have an issue with the authenticity of the document because we know this is a document that existed. We have a problem with the words that is giving the narrative of what this document is. And they said they're going to go get a court clerk to testify to it. And he's like, yeah, we're not going to do that to some state employment. I'll just go ahead and agree to it. I'll withdraw my objection to hearsay. And then he goes, because it's what did he say? He said, because it's a public record, and the judge looks at him and kind of almost whispers, in my opinion, to him and says, but no one made that argument yet. So basically the prosecution made the argument on behalf of the defense in order to get these documents entered, especially because the prosecution wanted to enter evidence of George saying, yes, I know there's a no contact order, but she basically invited me to come back. So there's that. I put of June 2019. I think I meant June 2018. I think it was the 19th of 2018. I think I wrote the date down wrong. But anyways, prosecution is now making arguments for defense to help them out, apparently. And then the defense indicated that they need to talk to Sarah because they are going to be wrapping up their case tomorrow. There are going to be the charging instructions. The court is going to send the charging instructions to the parties for them to review to make sure that they agree with the rules that the court is going to be presenting to the jury. A little bit of kind of agenda when they went through the timeline of how they expect to end the case. And they do expect to end the case tomorrow evening and for closing statements to go forward on Friday morning, which is super, super quick, as we have discussed before. This case was supposed to be 3 weeks long, and now we're talking about it ending in just 1 week because it started last Friday. It should be done. At least all the testimony, closing statements, all of those things should be done. And then it will depend on how long the jury takes to decide whether Sarah is guilty or not. Y'all got to let me know what y'all think. And if y'all think that the prosecution put on a case, we'll talk about it. I think there's a lot of loose ends. I think there is a lot of loose ends. I'm just now getting to the chats for the people that are watching live. We got Potentially Criminal. Hello. Welcome in. Thank you for stopping by. Saying, I know this has ruined all my plans to milk the content this trial. Oh, because it's going to end too fast? Yeah, I can see how that would be. Tanya D, welcome in. Nice to see you. Tanya D also saying, I can only stay for a bit tonight, but I definitely appreciate the recaps. No problem. I try to get through them fast. I hope they're actually helpful, what I'm talking about, because I just feel like I'm rambling half the time, but I think I'm giving y'all the information that is needed. Destiny B says, Bossy B, appreciate you hitting the like button. Yes, of course, for everyone that hit the like button, we are at 19 likes. If someone is in here and that has not hit the like button, we can get to 20 likes if you do. So please do hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you for that reminder, Tanya D. Scale says, but she heard the dogs barking. I've been wondering how they kept the dogs quiet that night. She said that the dogs were upstairs during her doing the whole suitcase thing. So maybe that's why they weren't barking. Well, one of the dogs is deaf. So that dog couldn't hear anything. And then the other dog is blind. So that dog couldn't see anything. And they were upstairs. So maybe that's why the dogs were quiet and they just kind of was used to the noise downstairs. I don't know. Tiny D, Destiny B says, good point to Scales. I agree. And Scales says, one time per lawyer. I don't know what you're referring to there, but we will see. Okay, y'all, that is all that I have for the live stream for today. Just wanted to give y'all a brief recap of what's going on. I don't know what the heck the defense has going on and not getting any of their experts qualified as experts. That's completely ridiculous in my opinion. Cute witness, Miss Pearl Walker. I don't know why they flew that lady out. That she probably has all these concerns and y'all flew her out for 10 minutes of testimony or 20 minutes of testimony. I think that was messed up. I don't think she was really needed to testify to the things. If anything, I think the prosecution kind of wiped her out. I think the prosecution did a good job kind of slicing a lot of these witnesses off today. I don't think the defense is putting up a very good case. The only thing that I think the defense is doing well is arguing that battered spouse, because there is evidence that what's his name, George, was abusive to Sarah. The question is although he was abusive, was she justified in leaving him in that suitcase overnight? And almost we feel like she's not justified because she felt the need to lie about it the next day when she was questioned by the police. I think this is, I want to say the name is Deidre James, saying, found you the other night, subscribed, and I like. Well, thank you very much. I definitely appreciate it. And Destined to Be saying, welcome to, I hope I'm saying it right. I'm calling it Deidre James. Welcome in. Thank you. Nice to have you. And we are happy that you hit the like button. And we did actually hit the 20 likes. So shout out to y'all. Thank y'all very much. Definitely appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow for my regularly scheduled stream. I don't know if I'm going to do the same format where it's just a kind of recap of what happens on tomorrow during trial. It probably will just be a recap. And then we'll address the comments at the end. So definitely appreciate everyone that came live, and I will see y'all all tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye.